Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and this year, 2026, is so exciting for a lot of reasons. And of course, a big part of that is incredible innovations and I guess evolutions and revolutions when it comes to technology. And for all of us in our businesses, that means that we get to leverage a lot of new tech, but it also means that there are so many more considerations from an IT and a cybersecurity perspective. And that's why I'm really excited about today's guest and fellow entrepreneur, because this is someone who is at the cutting edge of what that means for all of us as business owners. So let me introduce you to today's guest. His name is Martin Hiriart. Martin is a cybersecurity and IT professional and the co-founder of Attainable Security, where he helps provide comprehensive security for businesses through his high-quality, holistic IT strategies. We don't often see the word holistic in this industry, so I'm so excited for us to go deeper there with Martin today. With deep expertise in IT operations and identity management, he focuses on creating secure and efficient workflows that allow organizations to confidently focus on building their business, not on the tech. This is going to be an eye-opening episode for all of us, and I know we're going to learn a lot from him, so I'm excited about this one. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Martin Hiriart. All right, Martin, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much, Brian. Super excited to be here.
Heck yes, I'm so excited. There are so many things I want to talk to you about today in this world of IT and cybersecurity that I don't think a lot of people want to think about, let alone address. But before we dive straight into that stuff, take us beyond the bio. Who's Martin? How'd you start doing all these cool things?
Yeah, so honestly, just been in IT for all of my career. That kind of went into it, was studying IT in college, decided really wanted to work with computers. Worked a couple different jobs doing help desk, retail, working in data centers, managing servers, doing cloud, kind of started working into more of the security things the last couple of years. So kind of been all over the place, but it's been a great experience, and honestly just got to this point where with my co-founder Sam, we've been talking and we're like, hey, what if we did what we're doing but just did it as a service for other companies who maybe can't afford to hire us as full-time internal staff. So that's kind of where Attainable Security was born. And that's kind of what we're looking to do now, is just help small businesses and medium businesses who may not be able to afford the resources to build out these high-quality, holistic IT and cybersecurity programs, and just be able to kind of provide them with the tooling and expertise to do that.
Yeah, I really appreciate that overview. And Martin, obviously, I'm going to give a little bit of a spoiler alert while we're on the air together, is that obviously our pre-production team, when we reached out to invite you to come onto the show, our pre-production team sees a lot of businesses and a lot of entrepreneurs. We proactively do a lot of research in that space because we want to find great guests. And I'll share with you something that stood out to us instantly is the headline on your website: strong cybersecurity starts with strong IT. It's so fascinating to me how frequently these two things are in different conversations. What is it? Why are those two things not as interwoven as it seems like they should always be? And obviously, where's part of that magic come from for you guys that you do weave those things in together?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different reasons. The biggest one is tech, right? The internet and all of the things that we've known kind of started before security was a consideration, right? The internet was initially to help institutions like colleges be able to connect with each other and share research. And there's not a whole ton of, hey, we should make sure that this is being done securely. And it's more of just enabling those workflows. So a lot of it is just old tech and old ways of doing it that have kind of just formed this foundation for all of the things we're putting on top of it. And then the other part of it is, I think, just people don't really know, or they think it's just two separate specializations, right? Like you've got IT, which is just the day-to-day, fix the printer. If my keyboard's not working, you replace it type of work. And then the security people are the ones that are worrying about the audits and compliance and doing all the super high-tech anti-hacker stuff, when really it's kind of just a bridge of the two. There's a lot of overlap between the two, but I think it's really those reasons. It's the perception of what those roles do, plus just kind of the origins of the tech.
Yeah, I love the fact that you've given us those oversimplified examples. I'm going to kick it back to you to define what they really are, because I love your IT examples, because totally, I feel like that's how we all view it. But then even on the cybersecurity side, I will confess that I think a lot of people think cybersecurity is, oh, I run a virus scan on my MacBook. I do that once a month or maybe once a quarter, or for some people, maybe once a year. And so that's what they view as cybersecurity, Martin. Not even thinking about all the different facets of our business that are exposed to potential threats, our websites, our email servers, at this point, our use of so many different tools and the integrations among them. So Martin, you take us here. I want to start having the right conversation. So what is IT and what is everything that's encompassed there? And same thing for cybersecurity. What's the entire arena of both of those look like?
Oh man. Yeah, I feel like that's a really big question or answer to try to tackle. But I would say IT is really going to just be anything relating to tech and how that interacts with your information, your company's information, or your client's information, right? So think of like Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace. That's emails, that's files, that could be meetings, right? There's a lot of info there, and the IT side of it is how do we build and maintain this infrastructure that allows us to leverage the tech to handle the information. And then the security piece is how do we use the IT securely, right? So what controls can we put in place to make sure that the information that's flowing through those tech stacks is flowing through there securely? Only the people who should have access to it do have access to it. And how do we make sure that people who don't have access can't get access, right? Again, 30,000 foot view. There's a ton of nuance and a ton of just like different areas that we can go into. But at a high level, I think that's kind of a good place to start to kind of reframe what cybersecurity is and what IT is.
Yeah, for sure. And especially because we can go deeper in the realm of what a lot of listeners are thinking about, which is our small and medium-sized businesses. And a lot of people probably, Martin, are convincing themselves, well, I'm not going to face threats. I'm a local web design agency, or I have a digital social media agency. What are the threats that are out there for me? Paint that very real picture, because I think that not only have there always been threats, but I would imagine that in today's world with the rise and mass adoption of AI, there's evolving threats as well these days.
For sure. Yeah. And I think to a degree there was some truth to, well, I'm too small to be a target, right? At least a couple years ago, maybe 5-10 years ago, when a lot of these bigger companies, these bigger enterprises also didn't have great cybersecurity programs, right? So they just, because they had a bigger footprint, they were a much more attractive target for hackers and attackers and scammers to try to, hey, let me get this low-level salesperson at this massive org to click on this bad link in an email so I can get into their email, and then now I have access into the rest of the company systems, right? The problem that we're seeing now, and part of the reason why we started Attainable, is now these enterprises have realized, hey, security is actually a really important part of keeping the business running. We now have these millions of dollars we can just throw at the problem, right? We can hire a bunch of teams, we can pay for a bunch of fancy tools, and even if we're paying for duplicates or triplicates of tools that are all doing the same thing, it doesn't really matter. Let's just protect ourselves to make sure we're protected. And really what that's done is made them a much harder target. And now, attackers are going to just look for the path of least resistance, right? So, hey, if I'm trying to get into this massive organization and their security controls are a lot harder to break into or circumvent, I can also just go to the smaller company who maybe has 50 users, 20 users, 15 users, and they don't have any controls. So I can just get their data, get access to their things. And hey, I'm not going to make as much money if you're talking about like ransomware or something like that, but I'm going to get something, right? And something's better than nothing. So it's really that kind of that shift in attack surface and who is more susceptible that kind of has made small businesses a bigger target. And honestly, there's a lot of stats out there, and I try to use them very carefully because they can come off as like almost fear mongering. But a lot of small businesses that get hit by things like ransomware just really don't recover, right? Partially because financially they can't afford to recover. Could be loss of reputation, loss of customer trust. There could be so many reasons, but a lot of them just we can't afford to come back from that. So if we get hit, it's kind of a one and done deal. If we're not taking things seriously and we're not looking at the whole picture of what could be happening. So that's what we're trying to help solve here. We're trying to help educate folks as much as we are trying to provide services. It's really just trying to understand what threats are out there, what does that look like, and how can, like you mentioned, right? It's on our website. How can strong IT play into strong cybersecurity? So really having both of those things, whether it's, hey, we're going to do it for you, or just providing information on resourcing on how to do it, how to go about doing it, and where to look.
Yeah, I really appreciate your caution with regards to fear mongering, because it is certainly easy to monger fear in an arena where you're right. Once a company is hit, it's too late. There's a lot of very scary realities that do come up. And so a lot of people who might think, oh, it's, if somebody did get into my website, what are they going to see? My WordPress stuff? Like, they're going to see what plugins I have. That's not going to do anything to my business. But even worse than that is maybe they're going to get access to customer information, and maybe there's lawsuits that arise. This isn't just saying someone's going to log into your account and pull all your money out of your business checking account. There's so much more that goes into this. And Martin, I feel like you know this probably a million times better than I do about how many business owners want to kick the can down the road and say, well, yeah, I understand that these are risks, but I don't have any problems right now. And they just think, I'll deal with it if and when it ever happens. What do those proactive approaches look like? Obviously, this is so much of what you bring to the marketplace, is not just cleaning up after something's happened, but how can you proactively set businesses up for success? I actually picture it. I love the hardening of our homes analogy, because there are multiple ways that you can harden my home. You can come once and you can put the right things in place. My locks are sufficient, my windows lock, all the important things to harden my home. But then there's also the ongoing stuff of, I can have security cameras that are always working for me. I can hire a security guard. I can go as far down that road as I want to go. And so using that analogy in your world, what do those services and solutions look like for us? Is this something we can address once? Is it something that is ongoing? How do you guys proactively prevent this stuff from happening?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the way that we view cybersecurity is, it's kind of this spectrum, right? It's lighter between convenience and security, right? And kind of using the home analogy, hey, if you're in the middle of a field and you've got 100 acres of empty space between you and the next person, you're probably not as worried about locking doors as someone who lives in like metropolitan New York City, right? It's just the risk and the threat is a little bit different. But with that said, right, the more convenient things are, if you're not locking your doors, that's great. It's easy to get in and out. You don't have to worry about having your keys on you, but also the less secure things are, right? Anyone can just walk in, not just yourself or a family member. But now the more secure you get, right, the less convenient things become. We've all seen it in movies where it's like you have the like palm reader, you scan your eyeball, and you just got all of these different mechanisms of things you have to do before you can get into this like super secure vault. And to a degree, that's kind of what happens with cybersecurity controls, right? We can turn on things like multi-factor authentication. We can turn on things like biometrics, like a fingerprint or a face scan. We can turn on, hey, you need multiple versions of these things just to get it. We can make sure that your password is long, complex, and unique. All of these different things make it a little bit harder and less comfortable to use the services day to day, but they also make it a little bit more secure, because if it's a little bit harder for us, it's a lot harder for attackers, right? They don't have our fingerprint, they don't have our face, they don't have our phone, so they can't get those push notifications and things like that. So that's kind of the way we view it, and we try to frame it for people that we talk to, and it's really about helping them understand where they land on that slider, right? Where's that threshold for you and your business that makes sense between convenience and security? Because the last thing we want to do is implement so much security that it brings productivity to a halt. Because as small business owners ourselves and founders and just running small businesses, like we want to stay agile, we want to keep moving, we want to keep iterating. So how do we do that securely? How do we continue to be proactive with those things without, just not like just avoiding it altogether. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. And really, security is this ongoing thing. Like you've mentioned, tech is always changing. The tools we use can change, right? We may be trying out a new meeting note taker. We may be trying out a new productivity suite. We may be trying some other CRM or something else out just to see what's out there, see what's new. And all of those things can pose risks if we just kind of do it haphazardly, or we just kind of sign up for all the things and just leave it out there. So really trying to rein that in and be as proactive as possible, and being able to look at vendors who, hey, we have the next big thing, right? And okay, well, here are the things that are important to my business. How do you handle my data? What controls do you have in place for me to secure that data? Those types of things are all proactive measures you can take on top of just simple basics of like, what's my process for bringing a new person on to the team? How do I make sure that they get the access that they need and nothing more? What happens when someone leaves the team, right? How am I going to remove their access and make sure that they don't access company info once they're no longer a part of the company? So it's a big mix of these foundational secure habits, right? Like locking your door when you leave every day, as well as kind of this more forward thinking, hey, let me put up security cameras. Let me save recordings of the security cameras onto a recorder or up in the cloud. Let me hire a security monitoring company to let me know when a window's been opened, when the alarm's armed, those types of things, right? It's kind of a combination of bringing those things together in a way that makes sense for your business.
Yeah, and you brought up some very real considerations for all of us business owners when you use that example of, well, we want to test out different CRMs, we want to test out different password managers, we want to test out all these different technologies. And so I love the fact that you bring IT so closely into the cybersecurity conversation. And that's also what I really respect about your approach to this stuff, is that you understand that we are not IT and cybersecurity professionals. We are business owners. We don't want to have to worry about all those things. So what does it look like for business owners who do want to be agile and who do want to take advantage of that emerging technology? What does it look like to work with an IT company such as yourself that a lot of us say, well, Martin, I just want to, I'm very guilty of this. I'll hop on appsumo.com and we'll have an entirely new 3 tools, AI note taker, all those things that you listed. We'll have a new one of those every single month just to experiment, just to tinker with it. What should that flow look like when we're working alongside a professional such as yours? Because you understand the very real nature of what it means to be a fast-moving entrepreneur.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the most important aspect to finding another, an external IT provider is really finding someone you can partner with, right? Not just someone who will be there to answer the tickets and make sure that the issues get resolved, but someone who really wants to take a vested interest in your business, learn more about what you do, how are you looking to utilize these tools, what's your vision for where you want to take the company, and how can we, as your IT department, as your IT team, as your security team, come alongside you and help you leverage the tech, configure the tech, or maybe introduce new tech to help push that vision forward while using our expertise to make sure that that's done as securely and responsibly as possible.
So hearing you say that, I can't help but think about all the things that entrepreneurs, because we hear from a lot of listeners, and I know what we talk about on the air, and we are very gung-ho about so many emerging technologies. I'm going to pick on one in particular right now because I feel like it bridges both the IT side of the conversation and the cybersecurity, and that is vibe coding. Martin, it is such a cool period in time where if I dream of an app, even an internal app that we only want to use, or external, whatever it is, I, as a non-programmer, I can now bring that app to life. However, I also love Reddit, and I've been exposed to a subreddit where people will literally find vibe-coded apps and view the source code, which any of us can do on any website. Right-click and say view page source, and people are showing that real-life customer data is appearing on the front end, visible to anyone. So with that in mind, and I love that you've balanced out, there's convenience, but then there's also security. The answer is somewhere in the middle there. How do you balance out our need and our desire to use these sort of new technologies and emerging technologies, because it's happening faster than ever before? How do you balance that out with a business owner? Is it sometimes you reel them in? Is there a case in point where you will say, you know what, go for it, but let's review it afterwards. How the heck are you navigating that in a world where AI is empowering all of us?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that the answer to that question changes every 3 months, right? Just with the new changes in AI. But I think it really is. Vibe coding is a great tool to prototype and just get something out there quickly, right? Think of 3D printing, right? Hey, I want to build this thing and I want to kind of see it and feel it and see how it looks. 3D printing is a great, cheap way to do it. And 3D printing tech has become so much better now where you can actually kind of almost roll that into production and start selling 3D printed pieces and it all works well. But if you think about early days of 3D printing, it was really meant for that, right? It was kind of prototyping. It was like, let me just print this out super quickly. And then once I kind of get a feel for it, then we can send it out to go get fabricated at a warehouse or whatever, right? I feel like vibe coding is kind of that same. It's in that same spot as early 3D printing. It's great for prototyping. Like, I have this idea of this app I want to build where like someone can go in and do this thing and this other thing happens. And vibe coding can get you a very, very close V0 of like, oh, okay, I can conceptualize it. I can see it now. I can touch it and feel it and play with it. And I start to understand the vision for the product. But I think it still needs to be paired with a competent professional. And when you're talking about vibe coding and apps, like, get a developer who knows what they're doing, who understands all of the different security implications of, well, no, this is not the best way to do it because of this, right? There's so many attack vectors on web pages and apps that have been solved over the years, but because, a lot of these LLMs, a lot of these AI tools have just been trained on people's code out in the wild. Hey, we're all humans. We all make mistakes. We're all learning. A lot of things that we put out on GitHub are projects that we're starting that we're just trying to figure out what it looks like. But they just come along, scoop this up, and then they kind of use that as like, well, I saw this once or a couple times in GitHub, so clearly this must be the way to do it. So you start to see a lot of these bugs that have been solved professionally, right, by developers like, hey, we, for the most part, can solve things like SQL injection in websites. There's workflows and patterns in designing the software to help avoid those things. But at the same time, with vibe coding, it might just reintroduce a bunch of those things because what you're looking to do, it's sucked it up from someone's starter or template project or something like that. So, I think it's a great early prototyping phase, but you still need a team of pros who understand and have that expertise to be able to come in and clean it up and also set it up for longer term maintainability, right? Because that's the other thing. It can spit out all this code. You have no idea what it does. You don't read code. You don't understand code. What happens when there's a bug in the code or something breaks 3, 6, 12 months down the line? If you don't have someone who can kind of step in and help alleviate those bugs or fix them, you might run into this weird loop where like AI goes down a rabbit hole and it doesn't know how to fix the bug it created. And, you're kind of stuck in this vicious cycle. So there's definitely a room for those strategic partners and professionals coming alongside, those business owners who want to, move fast and break things.
Yeah, so well said. And actually, that's the first time I've heard that early 3D printing analogy. That's the best analogy that I've heard so far, is that it can absolutely get you maybe 80% of the way. But yeah, that's when it's time to turn to a real professional. And I feel empowered in that way as well, especially with graphic design. I'm the world's worst graphic designer. We have an incredible in-house designer. Shout out to Ken. And so when it comes to designing anything, historically, I had to use my words, which it's not easy to translate the images in my head into words. Whereas now I can fire up Gemini, for example, and use Nano Banana and get maybe 50% of the way there. And then Ken can work his magic and actually make it usable. So really appreciate those insights there. I want to put you on the spot as well for this, because this is something that really stood out to our team in the fact that, again, I just feel like so much of the way that you operate is operating from the point of you understanding what it means to be a business owner. And what really stands out is you even are very well equipped to serve remote teams. And that's something that I feel the very real weight of is the fact that our entire team, we're all remote, and not only are we remote, but we're in different countries and continents. And so we have a very wide array of hardware solutions, which runs our software solutions very differently. So Martin, take us into some of those considerations, because I feel like that is such a tricky field to navigate.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and there's a lot of things, right? There's a lot of nuance to how to go about doing this, and some of it is just org specific, the tools you use, how you access things, where it's all hosted. But for the most part, with the advent of cloud, with the advent of just all the SaaS tooling, most of, at least, speaking for our business, most of our business is cloud-based. Like, we don't have an office with a server rack and a firewall and networking and all the things that, you usually see in kind of a traditional picture of an office maybe 10, 20 years ago, right? A lot of it is just out on the internet. It's out on the cloud, and yeah, you've got your logins and all these things. So really it's trying to bridge that gap of how has the technology changed in terms of how we access tooling and use our tooling, but also how has the security technology changed to the point where we can be confident leveraging that and using that from outside of an office, from behind a firewall, right? Where working from home doesn't mean you VPN into your office network to then access files and things. But hey, how can we be just as secure working from the office as we are working from a Starbucks, right? That's kind of at a high level what the trying to leverage and set teams up for remote work is all about. Is let's take these tools and let's take all of the new advances in security and kind of bring them together, right? So you can start looking at things like single sign-on, which, just let's take your username and password for your identity provider, something like Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, Okta, and let's make that login the same login for all of your other apps. And what that'll do is that allows you can gain access to a ton of apps just by getting an account created or being added to a group. So hey, all of the salespeople, they're going to have access to Canva and HubSpot because that's part of the sales and marketing stuff that they've got to do. The engineers are automatically going to get access to sign into GitHub and to our Jira board. And you can actually start to do these things so that if someone were to transition out of sales and into engineering, they'll be able to just by moving them into the group, they'll lose access to the sales stuff and gain access to the engineering stuff. You can do things like conditional access policies, which is basically, hey, I have Brian's username and password, but now I also have to meet these other conditions as part of that login attempt in order to actually access the tooling. Now, that could be geofenced of hey, all of our team works in the US, so if you're not in the US, you're not going to get in. It could be things that are more granular of hey, if you're signing in from a managed Google Chrome profile for the company, you'll get in, but not if you're on a personal Chrome profile or browser. It could be just, hey, if someone's trying to sign in, let's just enforce the use of MFA. Let's make sure that if Brian's trying to sign in, we'll take his username and password, but we're also going to ask for MFA, right? We're going to make sure that it is actually him signing in. And there's a lot more to that, right? We can, if you have company-owned devices, we can also check hey, is this sign-in coming in from a company device or a personal device? If it's coming in from a company device, let it through. If it's not, don't let it through. And again, a lot of these things can be configured to what makes sense for your business, but there's a lot of new tooling and new ways of introducing the security tech that enables a lot more functionality and a lot more flexibility than what we used to have, which was just the walls behind the firewall. Everything inside the firewall is great. Everything outside the firewall is bad, right? And if you want to get something inside, you have to VPN or physically travel to the office to use it. So how do we kind of take this new approach and this new tech to kind of combat the new landscape that we're focusing on, which is everything's out on the internet by default instead of everything's in-house by default?
Gosh, I think that is the most practical answer I've ever heard from an IT and cybersecurity professional that sells us on why this foundation, why setting it up correctly is actually very powerful for us from a business perspective, not just from an IT and cybersecurity perspective. It's funny, we've all heard of single sign-on a million times in our life, and I've always been like, yeah, it's convenient. I have a password manager. I don't care about single sign-on. It knows all my passwords anyways, but this is the first time, Martin, you've sold me. Now I'm just like, okay.
Awesome.
That's why we need single sign-on. So huge kudos to you. I knew that time was going to fly by with you today, but I've got to put you on the spot one final time because I always ask this question, and that is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys, and also knowing that you are one of us, you're a fellow entrepreneur. It can stay within the realm of what we've talked about or go in any direction you want. What's that one piece of advice you want to leave them with today?
Yeah, honestly, I think, and this will probably apply to both the work world and the personal world, but just find those people and those relationships in your life that are partnerships, right? And provide a good support structure, whether that's a spouse, a significant other, a family member, a good friend, whether that's a trusted business partner or a trusted external third party. Finding those relationships and fostering them really is going to just help, right? If you're talking about the entrepreneur just trying to build the thing, having those people around them who are supporting them, who are there to listen when you just have to vent about how rough it can be, or hey, the people who celebrate with you when things are going great, right? That all just kind of keeps adding fuel to the fire to kind of keep trudging forward. And the same thing applies on the work side, right? In building the business, having those trusted relationships with external parties, with even internal people, just building those relationships where, hey, Brian and I, we're starting a new venture together. We have a really good relationship. We're continuing to grow that relationship. Now, with that relationship in place as the foundation, we can build on top of that to kind of just help make this new thing the best thing possible, right? And how can we work off of each other to, like, if Brian needs support, I can be there to help, whether that's talking, whether that's, hey, I can take care of that, don't worry, you focus on this, right? And vice versa. And just knowing that you have that person or the set of people that you can trust to just, hey, let's work on this together and work towards this shared goal is huge. It's super helpful. That's what's helped us at Attainable, both internally, again, between Sam and myself and our team members, just being able to kind of bounce ideas off each other, collaborate on things, hand off tasks of like, hey, I'm really busy doing this. Can someone else take this? And just knowing that they're going to be able to take it and run with it the same way I would have. As well as just, again, family, friends, having that support system outside of work. I think it's all part of the same puzzle.
Yes. Oh, I love that advice. Martin, I feel like you're such an anomaly in your field, because if a lot of people tune in thinking we were just going to geek out about all these tech things, the fact that you so deeply bring it back to business at its core, humanity at its core, relationships, the people behind these things, it is no surprise to me that you guys have been as successful as you are at Attainable, because you are doing really impactful and important things. And I'm so grateful for you sharing that advice with our worldwide set of listeners. And along those lines, I'm also very excited for those listeners to check out Attainable. I think that from a branding perspective, from a messaging perspective, the way you lay out your services, the fact that you have, I'm going to tease this to listeners, a free risk assessment, literally. Like, people can just, if they're hearing you and I talk about this and thinking, I wonder how exposed I am, I wonder what I should start thinking about, all of that is available to them. So drop those links on us for listeners who want to find Attainable and all the great work you're doing. Where should they go from here?
Yeah, I mean, the best place would be our website, attainablesecurity.io. You can also reach out to me and Sam directly. It's going to be Martin at attainablesecurity.io and Sam at attainablesecurity.io. We're also on LinkedIn. We're happy to connect with folks and just kind of keep that conversation going. And yeah, if you guys have questions, like you mentioned, Brian, hey, I don't know how exposed I am, I'd like to learn more. We have some free discovery tools. If you kind of already have some IT and security pain points that you want to talk through some more, reach out to us through any of those channels, and we'd be more than happy to kind of just sit down, learn about you, learn about your business, and see what can be done, right? And whether that means partnering with us to provide services, or just, hey, you should go out and check out these things, or look for a partner who's doing these things. That's what we want to do. At the end of the day, our philosophy is very much a rising tide lifts all boats. So where we can help, we will. Where it makes sense to kind of hand you off to someone else, we'll do that as well.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Listeners, you already know the drill. We're dropping those links down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. So attainableSecurity.io, Martin's personal LinkedIn, anywhere you want to go, you can start your journey with all these important topics that we've covered here today. So definitely check out the links in the show notes. Otherwise, Martin, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great talking.